Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wilson Central School District Middle School Parent Forum on YouTube. And it is right now 1 o'clock, and we will wait till about 2 minutes after, and then I'll get started. Welcome. This is Tim Carter, Superintendent of Wilson Central School District. We're going to wait till about 2 minutes after and then get started with our middle school parent forum. Oh, that's it? I thought it was longer than that. Yes. Wish I could see who the three people were, because if it's on you and I, why are we going to do this all over? Okay, I have 2 minutes after 1. I'm going to get started with the middle school parent forum on YouTube. We have about 5 people logged in, and I know Mr. Benton and Mrs. Vaughn are 2 of the 5. If the other remaining 3 are able to, in that chat box at the bottom, just identify themselves and whether or not they've seen the other parent forums, because that'll allow me to tailor this conversation a little bit. So if you could just identify yourself. I can see that there are 5, I just don't know who the 5 are. So if you have a second, just identify yourself and whether or not you've been to any of the other middle school parent forums. Hi, Karina. Have you been to any of the other forums? Okay. So this is an interactive parent forum. At the bottom right-hand screen, you'll see the word "Say Something." And if you want to ask a question or if you want to go through certain, thank you, Karina. So if you have any questions along the way, please just type them in. So if you, as I was saying to anyone else who's listening, if you have questions along the way, I'm going to kind of go through about a 15-minute, maybe half-hour presentation. And if you have questions along the way, please just type in your question and I'll stop and answer it at any point. So we're going to start out with the goal of our reopening is for all of us as school community, parents, students, and staff, teachers, to work together so that our schools can open up in as normal process as possible. So starting with the cleaning and sanitation, our building facilities director, Mr. Harmon, has worked with his staff all summer, getting them ready to begin with the school year. Working on the following things: reviewing and training on the CDC guidelines for reopening as it relates to cleaning and sanitizing. They have broken the building up and created a schedule, so every single night surfaces will be touched and cleaned and sanitized. The deep cleaning, they went through the guidelines for what deep cleaning looks like at the middle school and high school campus for the Wednesday remote day. Excuse me, got a tickle in my throat here. And not only have they been training and breaking up the building and creating a schedule, But Mr. Harmon has a sign-off sheet, so every single night when the building is finished, the person assigned to that area indicates with the signature that they have sanitized that area for the day. And that gives a level of accountability for that employee, but it also allows us to tell the health department when asked that at that particular night, that building in the area was sanitized. We also have installed in every classroom 1 or 2, depending on the classroom, hand sanitizers. We have individual bottles of spray sanitizer, alcohol-based sanitizer, and we also have some bottles that look like this for foaming hand sanitizer for classrooms. Because students are going to be asked when they enter every classroom, they need to sanitize their hand, and when they leave the classroom, they need to sanitize their hand. So that's the cleaning and sanitizing portion of this. I'm going to get into the health and safety aspects of reopening, which begins with the health screening. Every student and parent of a student is going to be asked to, if the student is home by themselves in the morning, the student can do it. If not, the parent needs to make sure that the student has it done. Do a health screen. We'll have a page on the district website, COVID health screen. You press on that, it'll be broken up into middle school, high school, and elementary school, and then by grade level, and then by teacher, your homeroom teacher. So you will go on the site in the morning and you'll take the COVID screen, answering questions yes or no. Do you have a fever over a 100.0? Yes or no? Do you have a cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle body aches, headache, loss of taste, loss of smell, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea? Yes or no to each one of those questions. If you're yes to any of those questions, you don't even go to school that day, you stay home and you log in remotely. If you've answered no to each one of those questions, you can go to school that day. If it's your day you're supposed to be in school. The health screening takes no more than 5 seconds to do. I take one every single morning. I get up, turn my phone on. I have it downloaded right onto my cell phone, the Wilson app, or log into your computer at home. Kids log into your Chromebook at home, and you take the screen. It just has to become part of a habit. So that screening will be done every single night. And again, if you're yes to any one of those signs and symptoms, you are not allowed to come to school that day. Okay? You're not only not allowed to come to school that day, you need to go see your health care provider. We'll talk about that when I get down to that portion of the program. Other health and safety. We'll talk about how transportation is going to happen in a moment, but after the students are in school. So we're going to use the traditional middle school entrances. The students that are being dropped off are going to drop off in the zip lot. The students that are bussers are going to come across the front with their bus into the bus loop and then park in front of the middle school. We have in the past allowed some parents to drop off in that district lot. That will be no longer. We cannot have a congestion of parents into that building. So all drop-offs are going to be in the ZIP parking lot. Mr. Benton, if you want to add anything to that?
ZIP parking lot, we'd like them to enter the parking lot, make a right in order to drop off their students either at the fitness center or the Zip Gym hallway door at not before 7:30. 7:30, the doors will open and students can then go to the cafeteria from that point forward. You can eat the breakfast there if they'd like, but that'll be the staging area and it will be supervised until the teachers arrive and the buses start unloading around 7:40, 7:45.
We can't have anybody dropped off before 7:30. There's no supervision outside, and we can't have kids congregating out in the parking lot. That's just not only something we're going to discourage, but it's something that you're going to get a phone call about if we're congregating before 7:30. Unfortunately, it's just we can't have kids shoulder to shoulder. They need to be socially distanced 6 foot apart, and it's our job to make sure that that happens. So when the doors open at 7:30, you can drop off your high school students in the fitness center, your middle school students at the zip hallway door, and then they can go right to the cafeteria for middle school, the cafeteria B, and they will sit down and wait for the 7:40 and the remainder of the students to come in. So that's about a 10-minute wait if they're dropped off early. Okay, and again, all has to be done, all the screenings has to be done prior, or the health screening has to be done prior to the student entering the building. In the morning time when teachers take attendance, they're not only going to take attendance, and that's why we have the screening separated by homeroom teachers. They need to take attendance and check to see if the kids in front of them have a COVID screen and everything is a no. Because if there's a yes, or you didn't take your screen, the students are going to be sent to the nurse's office, either to be called, parent called to send home because they have a yes, because they can't be in school if it's a yes, or they'll be sent to the nurses to take the screen. And again, students are going to be asked to do that every single month. Parents are going to be asked to check up. If the student, starts the forgetting and not getting it done, there will be reminder calls to make sure that parents understand what the student's expectation is. I had a question earlier about my child's home alone. If you're in the morning before he goes to school, if your child's home alone in the morning and they're old enough to be home alone, they're old enough to take on the responsibility of taking their own temperature and taking that health screen. Let's see, health and safety. We talked about the front entrance. We talked about the health. Oh, I didn't finish the front entrance. So once the students are in the building, all the doors are shut. They're going to be locked and shut, and the only way into the middle school is coming through the front middle school door and waiting in the front vestibule. Once all the students are in, no one enters and no one leaves the building. Or no visitors enter the building. Teachers can leave. No visitors enter the building. We're going to have them put between those two doors of the security vestibule. And if you're picking up a student, or if somebody's in the nurse's office and needs to be picked up, you're going to need to wait there, and that the child will be brought to you. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we're required to minimize the exposure to our students from the outside. That's one. Number two, actually, it's for the parents' safety. If you enter into the building and go beyond the second vestibule, you now just became part of the contact trace. And if there's a student in the building who happened to be test positive for COVID, you are running the risk of being isolated yourself. So therefore, I'm not letting any parents past the visitors or parents past the front secure vestibule in the middle school. We'll do the same thing for the high school. If you have a high school student, the secure vestibule has been worked on all summer. Probably noticed if you've come by the high school, there's some orange cones out in front of the front door. That's because they created a handicap ramp out the front high school door. And now they're working to complete the inside front vestibule. And put the doors in, and then there'll be an electric release for when we're allowing visitors back in. But right now, you'll be in between those two doors, and all students will be brought to you. Okay, so that's the entryway and the health checks. As part of our opening, we are going to be requiring our students to participate in training videos around hand hygiene, signs and symptoms of COVID, respiratory hygiene, proper wearing of masks, all the things that are required by New York State Ed for us to first to instruct the teachers on, and then the teachers to instruct the kids on. Social distancing, directionality in the high school. So part of that is the reason why the beginning of our school year is changed a little bit. So if our old calendar had a superintendent's conference day on the 2nd with the students starting on September 8th. That has been pushed back 2 days. So the 8th and 9th of September are now superintendent's conference day. And then the first day for cohort A students is going to be Thursday, the 10th of September. And then for cohort B students, Friday, the 11th of September. The distance learning students and anyone at home are not logging in till the 14th of September. So because we need to train the A cohort and the B cohort and the C, the 1201 students, we need to train them on directionality walking in the halls. There's directionality of the stairwells in the high school, middle school. There's one way out, one stairwell going up and one stairwell going down, how to stand in line, all of those things that need to happen correctly in order for us to be able to open up. Okay, so that's the opening week and all of the training that needs to happen. Besides the training we need to give teachers on this, we have to train the teachers and make sure that they're up to speed on the remote learning, using the camera and all the programs that we're going to be using in order to get that instruction across to the students in the best way possible. So therefore, on the Thursday and Friday of that week, the A cohort and the B cohort, they'll be trained on those also. Everybody will start the first day on the 14th of September. Social distancing is just going to be a part of our school day. So students are going to be walking in the hall 6 feet apart, single file. And remember, there's half the amount of kids that are going to be in the building. In some cases, many less than half the amount of kids in the building. We have approximately 20% of our students at the middle school and probably a little more than 20% of the high school students that are going with the full distance learning model. So when you subtract them, which is very consistent with the survey, we had about 20% of the community indicate that they wanted a distance learning option. So when you subtract them, and then we created the cohort A, B, and C, and you put them in the classes, there's a lot less kids in the classroom, which is going to work out for at least the beginning of the school year. Again, I don't know how long this is going to last. As soon as they lessen guidance, I'm believing that people are going to be coming back. I don't know if it's going to be when there's a vaccine or at what point they're going to allow us to come back full in person. But as of right now, this is the cards we're playing with, is that we need to do this hybrid, remote, and distance model. Anything to add with the social distancing, Mr. Benton, or directionality in the hallways that I may have missed?
No, everything will be covered the first 2 days that students are here. We're going to enforce the rules, and hopefully students will not need too many reminders. Otherwise, we're going to be communicating with home to make certain that students are reminded at home as well to follow the CDC guidelines here.
So the social distancing aspect, besides being in the hallways, is also an effect in the cafeteria. Students are going to have to sit 6 feet apart. We had marked off the cafeterias. We have alternate cafeterias or overflow rooms for cafeteria that get full. So as of right now, we are all set with cafeteria. Classrooms, kids will be sitting 6 feet apart, and that will allow them, while everybody is, while they're sitting, to take their mask off, to get mask breaks, because part of the requirement we have to do is we have to require mask breaks. And in order to do that, you have to be 6 feet apart from the person. And in order to get that to happen, we needed to reduce the number of kids that are in the building and in classrooms. And by doing that, we created this hybrid model, which is what many high school and middle schools are doing across Niagara County, is to shrink the number of kids that are in the building. So we're using a lot of different areas, including some of the computer labs, because students are getting Chromebooks. The need for computer labs is reduced a little bit. So we're using some of those areas to as overflows in order to have our students be social distance and eat lunch. Okay, so personal protective equipment. Every student is going to be required to wear a mask to school and wear the mask properly, not below the nose, not like hanging off their ear. The mask needs to be on. It's required that the mask is on above the nose and under the chin, and that's part of the first day. And I know, Mr. Benton and I know all full well what happens when you have masks with glasses on. We deal with it all day long. But the mask needs to be worn properly on a daily basis. It needs to be appropriate. It needs to be an appropriate mask. With just like you would wear an appropriate T-shirt to school, with sayings on it that are not appropriate for school. So that's the personal protective equipment. If a student is not able to wear a mask because of an illness or something, they will have to remain 6 feet of distance apart at all times with students in the building. Management of person. Okay. So I said in the morning, if you are if you're taking the health screening in the morning and you mark yes to any one of those symptoms, you need to stay home and contact your medical provider. And this is that portion I'm going to get into right now. If you're in school and any of those symptoms start to occur, you go down to the nurse's office. The nurse places you in an isolation room, and which are already in the nurse's office, and she calls home. A parent is going to be required to come get them. When the student is sent home, you'll be given information on what you need to do in order to return. That guidance changes on a daily basis. Now remember, if the student is just not feeling well a little bit, they may be sent home. They can still log in remotely when they get home, or log in the next day remotely until they have the clearance to return to school. The document I'm holding right now is a chart that will be put up on the webpage when we get closer to school. And why I haven't done it yet is it's changed, and it continues to change. As of right now, if you're isolated and sent home from school, or you check yes in the morning, you stay home. We need to inform the parent and the student. They must seek medical attention and must have their provider give a note to return, and you have to go take a COVID test, and it has to be negative. Now, that's what the Department of Health is telling us right now, that if a student is sent home from school, they need to go see their medical provider. If the student stays home from school because of one of those symptoms, one of those COVID symptoms, that I've read off a couple times, if you have any of those symptoms, and I know that many of these symptoms are very similar to other illnesses, you're going to have to, they can be the judge of that. But if you're sent home or you're home for one of those symptoms, you need to go see your medical provider. And right now, the New York State Department of Health is saying you need a COVID test to be negative to return, and you need a doctor's note. So those two things have to happen. And you'll also be given a list of where they're giving the COVID test. Now, I will say that guidance is a little different than the CDC guidance, which says you need a doctor's note to return or a COVID test, one or the other. But right now, we, as a school district, we have to follow Department of Health guidelines, and that guidance says we need both. Now, there are other counties that the medical director has already, or the Department of Health person has already made the decision that they're going to change that guidance. So you may see someone from Rochester, someone from Erie County, someone from Orleans County may say that it's or, because it is expected between now and the beginning of school that it will switch back to or, either a doctor's note or a negative COVID test, which makes it a little bit less stringent, because if you take a COVID test, you're out 14 days, or till the negative test comes back. So, and right now it's averaging 5 to 7 days for COVID results to come back to people, and that's using the counties or the state COVID testing center, which is at Niagara Community College. And that testing site is supposed to stay open until the snow flies. That's what we're told. But the hospital COVID, when the hospital does a COVID test, they send it to Quest, and that can take up to 7 to 10 days to come back. And during that entire time, while your negative COVID test is being processed, you can't be in school, you're logging in remotely, and attendance can still be taken. Okay. So that's the management of ill person. I haven't put that thing on the website yet, because I don't want to put something that may change up. So as soon as it changes, I'll put it up there. I'm expecting to do more community forums or email this out to parents so they understand what's going on. Okay, looking back at my reminder sheet here, and I think we're on transportation. So in the morning, if your child's coming to school that day and you are not transporting them, you need district transportation, there'll be a bus schedule sent out. Now, those times are not available yet, and they probably won't be available until just before a day or two before the beginning of school. We're constantly changing, we're constantly revamping them, but as soon as we have the times at which the kids are going to be picked up, we will get that out to parents. If it's out earlier than that, I'll get it out earlier than that. This has not been an easy task, and it's what we're spending most of our time right now is putting kids in a cohort, creating their schedules in the cohort that they're in. Also bus schedules for A cohort kids, B cohort kids. All of that has to be done. Kids going to BOCES, all of that stuff is in the works, and there's a lot of fine details to that. And make sure, and then all it takes is one little change, and it has a domino effect. So we're really trying to get this as right as possible. When your child is picked up at the bus stop, the bus will load from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. There will be a seating chart. Students will be expected to sit in that seat. Students will be required to wear masks when they get on the bus. So they need to have the mask in their hand, put it on, get on the bus, go to their assigned seat, loading from the back to the front, sit there until the bus drives them to school. And when they get to school and they're unloading, we're going to unload one or two buses at a time, starting with the front of the bus. The students are going to stay in their seats, and the bus will start unloading from the front of the bus to the back of the bus, one side at a time. And to maintain that social distance. It's not just going to be stand up and push to the front. Stay in your seats, unload from a seated position, one side of the bus, then the other side of the bus. One alternating sides. This way we're not having kids cross. That's what we're told we need to eliminate, is a student seated while someone's walking towards them and crossing their path. Okay, so that's transportation. Again, if you have any specific questions that may relate just to you and your family, please call 751-9399. But if you have a general question, you can put it in the question box. The continuity of learning plan. For the high school, there was two choices, either the hybrid plan or the full distance plan. And the reason for that is we needed to reduce the number of kids in the high school and middle school that could be in the class. So in order to maintain that social distance. So in the hybrid model, if you're in alphabet A through L, you're in cohort A. If you're in the alphabet N through Z, you're in cohort B. If you have different last names of a family, we're putting you in a cohort so they're together. We've had a number of friend requests, and we've denied them all at this point because we can't be switching and making changes based upon my friends in an opposite cohort. You're going to have to see them outside of school. The cohort C is our 12-on-1 life skills students. They will be here every single day. And then cohort D is the distance learning kids. So that's the hybrid. A cohort will be in school on Monday and Tuesday, and then they will be remote on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Cohort B students will be remote Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and will be in school Thursday and Friday. The majority of what they're going to be doing will be done with the computer, whether they're in school or out of school. It's very difficult to be in both worlds of in-person and distance. So there's going to be a lot of work on the computer. The difference is that if you're in school, you'll be able to ask the question of the teacher live and in the moment and get that assistant right then and there. So what I've asked teachers to do is the child should be logging into their Google Hangout. Everybody should see each other, whether you're in school or at home. You should all be logging in. Attendance should be taken. All those things, checking for the COVID screening, and then the lesson begins. And what you might see is what's going on right now. The teacher's talking, and the kids that are in school might be looking this way at the teacher, but at least they're at least a community on the screen, and the students at home also engaged and logged in. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell you, this is the This is the first for almost every teacher, and it's a first for many students, maybe not at the college level, but at the high school level. And we don't know what's going to happen when every student across New York State all of a sudden is now logging in and remote. It's going to be an interesting beginning of the school year, and we'll adapt and we'll adjust as time goes on. The word I keep using with teachers and parents when they call is we're going to have to be flexible. There's going to be times technology is not going to work, and the teacher's going to have to send something out through email. It's just the way it message out through email. One of my middle school meetings didn't work. I was scheduled at 11. We had to regroup and restarted at 12. I'm envisioning that. Teacher has a class third period, email goes out. You're going to need to do an asynchronous, or here's your assignment with a video attached to it. Please complete it by the end of the day. I'm envisioning many issues, but as students become more comfortable with Google Classroom and all those things, I think I know it's going to be a transition that we can make. We transitioned many of our high school classes, especially the ones that were college level classes and had to continue being graded, quickly transferred and transitioned to Google Classroom. The only differences this year is they're not only going to transition and continue to use Google Classroom, all of our students are going to have to use Google Classroom, and then more importantly, transition to this remote, in-person learning. There are two types of, many types, but two main types of remote instruction. One is synchronous, which means in the moment. That's when all the kids are logged in to the class. And then there's synchronous. Flip it around, sorry. Been doing this so long, I flipped it around. So synchronous means everybody's logged in at the moment. So that's like the Hollywood Squares. Everybody in the Zoom meeting is connected. And then asynchronous is when the teacher sends an assignment out. And what I've asked teachers to do, if you're going to send an assignment out, there should be an instruction video or some kind of content video that goes out with it to help the student work on what they're doing. The kids at home can revert to it more than one time. That's what I've asked. You probably have heard that at the elementary school we're using partitions. These are desk shields that allow the students to sit in their desks and take their mask off and take mask breaks. However, we cannot use them at the middle school and high school because they're not meant to be portable, to be moved around. And every time you move them, you got to sanitize them. And they're not meant to have multiple kids use the same shield. So that wasn't an option at the elementary school, or at the middle school and high school. Food service. We will have lunches. Students will go through the lunch line. There'll be markers on the floor for them to stay social distance apart. And then once they're in the cafeteria, they will sit socially distanced from each other. And then we will use not only the middle school cafeteria, but we have another overflow area that will be monitored at all times with an adult for students to be able to eat lunch. Again, we have less than half the amount of kids in the building. We have about 40% of the students going to be in the building there at a time. Therefore, we can socially distance and allow them to eat and take the mask off for that period of time.
Menus will be posted online. There will not be paper copies this year.
Yep. So just like we're asking their kids to start thinking about going paperless, so are the cafeteria. So they're going to post menus online. The high school, middle school, and elementary school are going to have similar food service menus. We will also have an option for anyone who's remote that day that wants to pick up a lunch. We'll have a location, and right now the location is the Zip Gym foyer. And when they pick up at the Zip Gym foyer, it will be the same cost as if they were in school. So if you're free and reduced, you'll get the free and reduced amount, or if you're full pay, you'll pay the full pay amount. We'll also, in fact, this morning, they're working on a reservation line. So we have a reservation form that will be online. You fill out that form and submit it, and then it'll go to the food service. They'll prepare your meal, have it in a container to go, and then that will be given to you. You'll be given that. There'll be no money exchanged at the table while you're picking up, so you're going to have to preload your My School Bucks account, or whatever that account is called. It'll have to be preloaded with money, in order to pick up food. We're just not going to, I don't want our staff handling money outside in the parking lot or outside in the foyer. Technology. So not only the students are getting a Chromebook, the majority of the students are getting a touchscreen Chromebook. There are about 70 students, middle school and high school, that are not right now have a non-touch screen, which is just unfortunate, but it's what we could get for now. So we're at the mercy of the manufacturers right now. So we were able to get our hands on non-touch screen. So like 70 of the students in the middle school and high school will have non-touch screen, the rest will be touch screen. So part of the supply list, which I know Mr. Benton will talk about the supply list and orientation at the end of this, but part of the supply list is we're asking parents to purchase headphones so students can sit next to each other without having that noise interference, and then also a stylus. Those touch screens will be used extensively in science and math classes, like a piece of paper would be used. Styluses are inexpensive. They can be purchased at the dollar store. I've seen them there. I've seen them at Family Dollar, places like that. Dollar General has them. At least last time I was in Dollar General, they had them. Doesn't mean they're going to still be there. But like I said, there's many places that have those styluses available. They're hard point styluses that allow the student to be able to. It's not the soft one. Like this particular one has a soft point to it. That is not a stylus. This end is. This is not a pen, but it's an actual piece of metal or plastic, excuse me. It allows you to write on a touch screen. Touchscreen computer. Okay, so besides the computer, we ordered Chromebooks for every student. About 200 students at the elementary school and about 70, 80 students at the middle school have the non-touch screen. We have an order in to replace them. So when we get the order of touchscreen computers in, we will call the student in, swap it out, so they have the right type of computer that we want them to have. Again, we're just at the mercy of the manufacturer. They're telling us beginning of October before we'll get those delivered to replace so every kid will have a touch screen computer. Besides computer, we have purchased for the families that indicated that they did not have internet to have a hotspot. So internet for students without having cable or the ability to get cable will be taken care of using hotspots. Now these hotspots require a cell tower close by. So if you have a cell tower, if you're able to use your cell phone at your house, and it has good connection, but you can't get internet at your house because there are some locations in Wilson that do not have high-speed internet or any kind of internet access or the ability to get internet. We will provide a hotspot. We have a list of parents that already have indicated that they do not have internet, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come. So we have a number of these purchased in order to get internet to them. I'm anticipating a small handful of people that can't get internet, don't have the ability to get internet, and are not close enough to a cell tower to get reception. Those students we're going to have to deal with a little bit on an independent basis, but I will tell you that we're going to have internet in our parking lots projected out of our parking lots to be an internet hub, just like McDonald's has, places like that. So a student, if he's doing his work, can, at the end of the day, if he's close enough, can walk over, or if a parent needs to drive him in the evening in order to submit the paperwork or submit that work for that day electronically. Or we're going to have to deal with it with the back and forth of paper copies. Our hope is we don't have to do that. So that is technology. We have a number of programs we're working on. There's a program called Kami, K-A-M-I, which you can Google, which allows a teacher and student to interface with paper documents that the teacher may already have, but are not digital, and we'll make them digital and allow them to use the stylus or the keyboard to actually write answers right into the document. It'll allow for interactive notes and all sorts of things to occur. The two other things that I have before I turn it over to Mr. Benton about orientation and supply list is athletics. As of right now, there are no athletics until end of September. I think it's the 23rd is the date, but I'm expecting that to be pushed off even farther. There are no extracurricular clubs after school. Right now, we want students to be able to be leaving at the end of the day, and when the students are gone, we're going to start the cleaning process and sanitizing process. And until we know how long that's going to take, and we get a rhythm going, at least for the month of September, we're not going to have any extracurricular activities. The guidelines don't allow it right now, so we're going to just see how when that loosens up, we'll start bringing stuff back slowly. So that's the end of the list that I have. If you have any questions, please type them into the question bar. And I'll let Mr. Benton talk about sixth grade orientation and supply lists.
Hello, everybody. Supply lists. We are finalizing the list for the middle school. It's really, really small. We're not requiring much. We're really looking at folders, a couple of folders, a couple of notebooks, maybe some filler paper. We're just trying to reduce the amount of paper that we're using that's going back and forth. Definitely we're going to need some headphones and a stylus for the computers, and I'll send out the example stylus that you could purchase if you'd like, but it should be similar. It doesn't need to be the exact one.
Is there going to be an actual supply list from the middle school send out to parents at some point? Or
Yes, I'll email it out probably Monday or Tuesday, just to get that out there. If you have any questions, give me a holler. But it's just a really small list. Pens, pencils. It's just the traditional stuff you would normally get. There's nothing special on those other than the stylus and the headphones.
one thing I didn't add, and it reminded me when you talked about supplies, we're not using lockers for gym or lockers for the hallways until further notice, until we're able to either figure out how long it's going to take us to get the building sanitized to the next day. We don't want to add one more thing. So if kids are touching lockers on the inside, we're going to have to do the outside and the inside of the lockers. Same with the gym lockers. Plus the gym areas, you can't social distance in them anyway. So as of right now, we're not going to have locker room use in the high school and the middle school. Anything else? Sixth grade orientation.
Yeah. Let me talk about the sixth grade and new student to the new middle school students visitation first. This afternoon, I'll be emailing parents of the incoming sixth graders and new students. Next Wednesday, we'll have a visitation for sixth grade students and new students to the middle school. We're going to have 4 windows of time: 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and 7 to 8. We're going to allow 15 students in the building at a time, and they'll have to complete the health screen and a temperature check before coming in the building. Parents, you're going to drop off your student outside the middle school entrance, and then you can drive around and pick up your child at the fitness center lobby. I'm envisioning tours to take half an hour, 45 minutes at the most. Staff hopefully will be here to meet your students, your children. A brief introduction. It's basically just a tour of the building. I'll be giving the tour. And if you have any questions regarding that after reading today's email, please give me a call. I'd be happy to speak to you about that. Orientation is going to be a virtual orientation. I'll go through the building for those students that have never been here before, if they can't make the visitation. but I'll give my presentation similar to what I've done in the aud. I'll have that on the screen. I'll be talking to you. I've asked teachers to create a simple introductory video. Hello, my name is Mr. Cotter. I teach 7th grade social studies, that sort of thing. It's when the students are here and when they're distance learning, that's when the teachers will give the expectations for their course, for remote as well as in class. So we really don't have a true to sort orientation this year. Most of it's going to be just an introductory type of scenario, and the true orientation is going to be when they're in class.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything we didn't cover, Mr. Benton, that you think we should?
We'll be sending some more guidelines for band and chorus and phys ed and those types of classes. One thing to keep in mind, because students are not changing for gym class, on days that they have gym, they're going to need to wear sneakers. We can't have them wearing their shoes and heeled shoes and rough-soled shoes on the gym floor. We just need to keep that floor as clean as possible, but also they're going to be running and doing activities as well. So sneakers are much more safer than the typical shoes they wear on a daily basis.
The majority of gym classes are going to be outside while the weather's nice, because they need to be 12 foot apart, and the best place to be 12 foot apart and well ventilated is outside. So if it's nice out, you'll be out. Until the weather gets nasty and frigid, you'll be inside, or we'll move inside then. But as of right now, all the gym classes, the majority of the gym classes are going to be outside. All right, I didn't have anything else in my list to go over, and seeing that there's no questions at this point, if nothing pops up on the screen here, I will sign off and say thank you for joining us. And again, if you have any questions, you can call 751-9399. I believe Mrs. Vaughn is putting that on the screen. As soon as that goes up, I will sign off. There it is, 751-9399 if you have any further questions. Thank you very much.